Hello, and welcome to the Write or Die Show. I am your host, Randi-lee. On today's episode, we're going to be talking to Bracha Goetz, and her story kind of shocked me. And you'll see my expressions or hear my expressions when she talks about some pretty life-changing opportunities that happened for her. So welcome, Bracha. Thank you so much for being on the show.
And thank you for inviting me here.
All right, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm the author of 39 spiritual children's books. So,
Wow.
they're very, for very young children on very deep subjects. And then I'm also the author of one book for adults, a memoir about overcoming food addictions. It's also how I became led a more spiritual life and overcame food addictions. That's what it's about. Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. And what about you? Not your author side, not your business side, but who are you?
Oh, me? Okay. I'm also, I don't know does this count? I have 6 grown-up children, amazing children,
Wow.
and a wonderful husband. And I live now in a big old house. I don't know. It's pretty empty now.
Well, I guess so, if all the kids are grown and gone.
Yeah. The house is almost 100 years old and I love
So's
it.
mine.
Wow. Amazing. Do you
Very
love
cool.
it too?
Sometimes I don't love the lack of closet space.
Yeah, we have these tiny closets. They're so cute. It's hysterical. They look like broom closets. It's like,
Yeah.
nice, because people didn't have so many, a ridiculous amount of things like
Yeah.
today, you know?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm constantly reminded of the fact that we have so much stuff.
Right,
Right. We don't need more stuff in our lives.
Exactly right. Exactly.
All right, so
Yeah.
Food addiction. This is such an interesting topic to me. I've had one other guest talk a little bit about it because her husband has that issue. But tell us your side of it.
Okay, well, I guess it started around age 12. Well, the memoir I wrote, Searching for God in the Garbage, it starts when I'm becoming 12. It's a compilation of my diaries, my journals, my letters. So as you know, see, I like to write very short things. So I don't like to write a whole big book. It wrote itself. I just compiled everything and I filled in the missing pieces. Basically, when I found my old diaries, I saw the thread. I was able to see the thread of how did these addictions develop and how did I heal? I didn't understand, why did nourishing my hungry soul lead to having no more food addictions? That's what I couldn't see the pieces until I put the book together. So the book was like therapy.
Oh, good.
Yes, through writing the book, I was able to understand, why do addictions develop and how can they be healed? And I really believe that there's a spiritual basis to addictions, and that's what I'm loving to share.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So starting at age 12, how did you eventually come to the realization that you had food addiction?
Okay, at age 12, I didn't really have a food addiction, but I started to have an awareness that something was missing in my life. That's when a greater awareness started. And then as a teen, I remember when I started dieting and people were telling me I looked better and things like that. So I got really into dieting. And then, it was like anorexic kind of behavior, but it fluctuated with binge eating. So I was doing one or the other. So I was never super skinny or super overweight. Nobody from the outside could even see that I really had a problem. I was thin. I was very thin, but not like didn't need to be hospitalized. I wasn't very sick. Like I didn't get to that stage, mainly because of I think because of the binge eating that was, helping me to not get emaciated. So basically, it got worse and worse. I was a student at Harvard University.
Oh,
Here,
wow.
yeah, and I look like, big, successful, and everything. And yet, and I was even studying. What was I studying? Eating disorders. Of course, that's what I was studying. Because, like,
Wow.
I was doing really groundbreaking research in the field, and I was getting sicker and sicker as this was happening. So, in other words, what you understand intellectually is not enough. It's just not enough. So, I was getting sicker and sicker. And then when I went to medical school after I graduated from Harvard, I'm studying to be a psychiatrist and I'm doing such bizarre behaviors. I'm not going to go into it here, but it's in the book. Like, it's really raw. It's really, um, people will say to me all the time, how could you write such embarrassing stuff? Like, your life is so wonderful now. How could you put yourself out there and write such, like, kind of degrading things about my life? But if I don't show how painful it was, how low a person can get with an addiction, then you don't understand how great it is to rise out of that, to break out of that slavery, basically.
Yes, that is so true. And it's so nice that there are people out there like you who are sharing that side of it. Because yeah, right now, okay, you've got a great life, but where were you before? Because there's people that are in that place like you were who need to know it can get better.
Exactly. And that's why I love that you're doing this podcast. When I saw it, I said, this is what I want to do. I mean, I'm all into breaking the stigma.
Good.
Some people call it a mental illness, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's addictions is a real problem. It's
Yes.
an imprisonment. I think I saw a definition that here I wrote it down.
Oh,
It's
good.
it's the compulsive use despite the harmful consequences. That's when you know you have an addiction. When
Yeah.
intellectually you're doing something harmful to yourself, but you do it anyway and you
Yeah.
are compelled to do it.
Yeah. You
So
just can't stop.
exactly. And you'll do crazy stuff, stealing food from people, I mean, like, but even worse, it was just really horrible, a horrible life to live. And again, I didn't look that way. And you never know what anybody's going
Yeah.
through. You
Well,
never know.
exactly. Exactly. That's such an important thing to bring up. And that's part of the stigma, right? Is that you can't see it when you just look at a person. Like, really,
Exactly.
only that person really knows because we hide. We put masks on, we'll smile, yeah, everything's great. But deep down, we're screaming in pain of whatever.
Screaming in desperate pain. That's exactly what it felt like. So what a lot that I learned about mental illness is that it could be a metaphor for what you're trying to express into the world. To me, that's how I saw it. I was starving my body so it would look like my soul. My soul was was truly starving for nourishment that it wasn't getting. And so I took a huge detour. I had a 6-week break between my first and second year of medical school.
Okay.
I went to Israel for the summer. I came back 10 years later.
Oh
So,
my goodness. I wasn't expecting you to say 10 years.
yeah,
Wow.
with a husband and 5 children. So, I mean,
Wow.
but basically, I found what I was looking for in my own heritage. And now I was into exploring all religions, any that I could get my hands on. And I was exploring Buddhism and Christianity in some depth. I was born Jewish, but I didn't know about my the wisdom in my own heritage. I knew
Mhm.
about its culture, but not the wisdom. So I got to learn. They had like these schools for like adult beginners.
Okay.
Yeah. And I began to learn. And right away, I found pieces of truth in other religions too, but it didn't fit like a puzzle piece like this did into my soul. So,
Mhm.
so I, it wasn't like the addictions went away immediately, but
Mhm.
as I integrated the nourishment into my life, I discovered what brings lasting pleasure. And I realized that all this overeating and the desperate search for more and more has to do with not getting fulfillment, not feeling gratitude, a sense of, and that's to me, that's the basis of spirituality, gratitude. Gratitude to source for all the blessings in our lives. So basically,
Wow.
that's how my life changed with an understanding. Um, I actually learned from a rabbi about the pleasure ladder. It has 5 rungs on it, and it corresponds to the 5 levels of the human soul. So each level up brings a more lasting pleasure. And I don't know if you want me to explain what all these different levels of pleasure
You
are.
can take a minute or two and do it. I'm sure
Okay.
it probably could take a long time, but
I
short
could
version.
I could do a short version. The lowest level are all the physical pleasures that we have. In other words, like this was designed for our ultimate pleasure. An orange, an orange is beautiful to look at, and it's wonderful to taste, and it has an aroma. It could have been that we just took a pill every day, or we didn't eat any food, but it was designed to be a pleasure, a pleasurable experience in and tactile. So many senses are involved in this pleasure. And in fact, it doesn't even become like the brightest color until it's ripe. When it's ripe, that's when it's like, eat me now, I'm ripe, and like
Yeah.
it's designed to do,
Unless you're an avocado, then you get darker.
you get darker, but that's a good point. Oh
It's
my
an
gosh,
avocado.
avocado get darker. And you're right. Now, oh my gosh, that absolutely confuses me because no, really,
Sorry.
no, that's so helpful. I love when this happens because like one of my books is about like how these like a potato and a nut,
Yeah.
they're not brightly colored because we're not supposed to bite right into them. We have to like use a nutcracker, and we have to
Okay.
cook the potato first. So
Well,
don't
yeah, you
bite.
want to cut the avocado, so there you go.
I don't know if that's good enough because you have
I
to
don't,
cut this too. I don't know. I'm
well,
gonna
now
have
now
to.
I've given you some food for thought.
Yes, you really have. I'm so excited. That's why I love doing this. I need to always be getting to the absolute truth, and this is awesome. So I'm writing it down.
Yes,
Avocado.
do.
Okay, so now,
That was a big thing because when I was learning about food in general, I was talking to a dietitian at the grocery store, and she's like, "Have you ever tried avocado? Because good healthy fat." And I was like, "No." I'm like, "I have no idea how to even buy one." And I thought, just like you were saying, how things as they get riper, they get more colorful. I assumed, wrongly so, that an avocado you want it to be bright green, but
right.
that means it's not ready to eat yet.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. I
You're
don't know what I'm going to
welcome.
do about the avocado. Rewrite all my books. I don't know what I'm going to do. But thank you so much. Anyway, so the lowest level of pleasure are all the pleasures that have to do with our senses. The world was designed for our pleasure. That's what we don't realize. Like the purpose of life, I learned finally, is to experience the greatest pleasure possible. We're not taught that. I had to search and search for that. So that's a whole different view. Because like, what does a parent want for their child? To experience the greatest pleasure possible. That's what we want for our children. That's what
Mhm.
we were created to do here. And we went so far off base. So the lowest level are all the sensual pleasures, the natural sensual pleasures. The next level is love, which again is about gratitude. It's just appreciating another. It's not about waiting for love to come to you. These are all empowering things that we could bring pleasure into our own lives, even if we're in
Yes.
prison at any moment. Gratitude for the sensual basic pleasures, gratitude for focusing on what you appreciate about someone else. That's the second level, higher level. The third level is meaning. That's what I was missing in my life, knowing the meaning to life. So once you have meaning and can do meaningful things in life, that's an even greater pleasure. What's higher than that? You know this pleasure for sure. Creativity. It's when you don't feel like eating or sleeping because you're in a zone of creativity, bringing a piece of
Yeah.
yourself into the world. It's each one is a higher level. Each one connects us even more to source and connects us to each other. What's the highest level of all is transcendence, when we have clarity about how we're all connected, and gratitude for being a part of it. It's like an ultimate sense of awe and bliss. We don't stay in the two highest levels for continuous periods. They're for like certain periods of time because we would burn out. Not in this lifetime. We're mainly on the three lower levels: physical, love, and meaning. And those are the main ways that we can bring pleasure into our life and fill our lives.
Wonderful. That's pretty enlightening. There's some very interesting new concepts for, at least for me, and maybe some other people who are listening. Okay, so I need to ask, because you said that you were in between your first and second year of medical school when you went off and then come back for 10 years. Did you ever go back and finish medical school? Did you do it while you were there?
No, I never. First, I took a year's leave of absence. I was going to transfer to Tel Aviv University Medical School. No, I said, this is really not what I'm going to be doing. I'm devoting my life on a spiritual course. And I stayed home with my children until my youngest was in first grade.
Okay.
And then I said, now I'm either going to get an interesting job or go back to school, whichever comes first. And I got an interesting job. I never went back to school. So, and now so I've been doing that all these years, and plus writing books
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Cool. I
Yeah.
had to know the answer.
Yes, yeah, I never went back. And by the time I came back, all my prerequisites would have been have to do it over again. It's fine. I went into a psychological field without becoming a psychiatrist, and I'm much more interested in healing the soul than the body, although I love the mind body connection. I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, that mind body connection is really cool. I'm a yoga teacher. And I love, the more that I've learned about yoga and the poses, the more I've been able to make that connection within myself, which has helped with my mental health.
Exactly. I also love yoga. Every day I do yoga. I practice yoga exercises and I love it. It also fills you with a consciousness of gravity and appreciation for how our bodies work, and for the moment, to be in the moment and to appreciate it. It's a
Yeah.
wonderful practice.
And that being in the moment is so hard for a lot of people with or without mental health issues. Really, I know for me, being in the moment is exasperated. Like, the ability to be in the moment is very difficult when I'm in one of my depressive states. It's so much more difficult to just be, because the more I'm in the moment when I'm depressed, the more I can hear my voice in my head telling me how horrible I am, all that negative thoughts. So then when I try to do some yoga and stuff and feel my body flowing through just poses, I don't know what it does. It releases, well, I know it releases our endorphins because it's exercise, but it starts to release that negative thoughts, negative energy, and I feel better after.
Definitely. When I feel stressed, I if I do yoga, it's flowing. The energy just starts flowing. It's not stuck in a certain place.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful experience. And also, like, when I went through a hard time, um, a very difficult period of time, I remember that the only thing that got me out when I felt lost was focusing on a tree. I would just focus on that tree and feel, yes, there's beautiful things in the world. There's not just people doing crimes. Like, I would just focus on this to get back to a beautiful place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's being in the moment in that sense. If I don't know if a person's feeling anxious or depressed, whatever, you can focus on one beautiful thing in the world.
Yeah.
And that can help you. It can help to ground you, or to, just to make you present, not necessarily with all the talk, they call it the monkey brain, all the talk
Okay,
that's
yeah.
going on, but to focus on something concrete and beautiful that was created for our enjoyment in this world. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know that you were struggling with your eating and how you were feeling. So you went on this trip that you were only going to go for a couple weeks. While you were there, obviously something happened to make you fall in love with, I don't know, the location or what you're feeling. What happened that made you stay?
Yeah, basically it was what I have shared with you. It's the wisdom. Like, there was research going on at Harvard, and I'd go to these classes and I'd say, we knew this ancient wisdom thousands of years ago. Now they're doing research to discover this. This is already known.
Yeah.
I never knew this stuff, and I, I, I was fascinated by the Hebrew language, learning things in the most basic form. The words are connected to the essence of the thing. Like, it's not just an arbitrary word. It's fascinating, and the words are all connected to each other. It's in a most amazing language. So I was I just was astounded and thrilled to finally find what I was searching for after all those years, the nourishment that my soul was craving. And that's why I feel like I'm kind of like a control in a scientific experiment, because I had everything else. Yeah, I mean, I had a sweet life, you know. I mean, my parents. We just came from. I came from a small apartment in New York, and we. I studied education. I wanted to learn. Why did I go to Harvard? Just because I was searching for wisdom. I wanted to
Yeah.
learn and learn. And why was I studying so many religions? And I was involved in all kinds of social justice movements, environmentalism. I just was fascinated. Of course, experimenting at everything in that time, with drugs, with relationships, trying all these things to find meaning for my life.
Yeah.
And it all, I found pieces of it everywhere, but
So
it wasn't that complete fit. So,
so
um,
what
yeah.
made you take this trip?
Oh, well, I had 6 weeks off,
Yeah.
and my parents thought, they weren't so thrilled in the direction I was going, in the sense that, I was kind of living a kind of wild life, even though I was in medical school, in
Okay.
terms of like my morals and everything were going down the
Mm.
drain. The kind of people I was hanging out with and everything. And like, why don't you go to Israel for the summer? They kind of wanted me to explore my Jewish background, but they never expected me to go so far into it, because they didn't have lives like that. They were
Yeah.
just like, but I really embraced it in the full sense. And they never had the education that I was able to get there
Hmm.
about the spiritual understanding. Yeah.
Okay. And when you were there, I know that you were gaining knowledge and all this. When was it, or how long did it take you to um, kind of stop this food addiction or stop the binging and stuff?
Yeah. Basically, when there was so much joy in my life that it just took up less space. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how else to explain it, but it's like when your cup becomes full, then you just don't feel that lacking anymore. I feel like the main problem was more overeating. And why does a person overeat? Because they want the pleasure to keep lasting. It is
Yeah.
it's a genuine pleasure that you experience, but but you don't want it to stop. If your life is not pleasurable enough, you want it to keep being pleasurable. So you want it to keep eating. Like, I saw this YouTube of my 600-pound life, and
Yeah.
they all say the same thing. This was the only joy in my life, eating. That's what
Yeah.
their lives got to. And it can really get like that when you don't have the fulfillment, when you don't have the higher levels of
Hmm.
pleasure. You just keep eating because it's so easy and it's right there, and it was designed to be pleasurable. But here's the thing: like this new book just came out by Michael Moss. He's
Okay.
like a Pulitzer Prize winner, about how it's called Hooked, about how the non-natural foods are designed to be addictive. So like an
Mm,
orange, a person's not going to eat 2 bags of oranges. They're just not going to do
yeah.
that because it fills you. I mean, it's designed so perfectly with fiber and nutrients and vitamins, but
Yeah.
the food that's been processed, they take out the good stuff, and what you're left with is addictive.
Sugar, sugar, sugar.
Sugar and fats and salt that make you want more, and they're actually taking out the good vitamins from you as you're digesting them, so it's a mess, and
Hmm.
your body's craving more of the good stuff, and you keep eating. It's 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 not designed with our health in mind.
Yeah.
So it's not designed for our benefit. It's not designed for our ultimate pleasure.
Hmm.
So the more we fill our lives with the natural pleasures in life, there's just less room for the addictions, because how do you overcome a bad habit? It's not through restriction.
Yeah.
It's by adding more joy to your life. Add more joy, and that is the most effective way to create a new habit. In fact, I saw another new book about breaking bad habits. It says there's 3 steps: easy, effective, and repeat. Easy, joyful, and repeat. So I say, really, it's just joyful, because if it's joyful, it's easy and you want to repeat it. So that's it. It's the more we can focus on making our lives joyful, and knowing that we're people, many people feel unworthy of joy. If they had
Hmm.
an abusive childhood or neglect, they feel
Yeah.
unworthy. And so the more little joys you could add into your life, the more worthy you'll feel, because you'll be bringing them in. It actually works like that.
Yes.
It creates actually a cognitive dissonance. As you create more joy, you're saying, "Oh, I'm a person that deserves joy in life." And and the way to get joy is not by going out and buying a million things. It's by having gratitude for what you already have. That's how you
Yes.
create joy.
Yes. Or having 100-year-old house, you can't put more things in it. That is really insightful. That's great. What made you come back after 10 years?
Well, my parents weren't well.
Mm.
We actually came back in the same crazy way. We came for like 2 weeks to visit them. Same story. And I said to my husband, "Do you think we should stay here?" He said, "I think we should." So we had 2 suitcases, 5 children, and we ended up coming back with no jobs here, nothing. It was a crazy, crazy way we came
Wow.
back, but we eventually did it.
Okay, okay. Your life is full of some really giant life-changing events that just sort of happened.
Yeah,
But I
it's
mean,
true.
it seems to be working out for you, so that's good. I mean, if you didn't randomly go for only 6 weeks, sounds like you wouldn't have ever met your husband or had 6 kids.
Exactly. You
So
got
it
it. You
it
got
worked
it.
out. All right. What would you tell somebody who's listening right now who is struggling with their own eating disorders?
Yes. One of my most important things to say is it's not like you have a soul that's hungry. You are a soul. We don't have souls. We are souls. We're spiritual beings, and we're here in our physical bodies for a limited amount of time. Like, what my belief system tells me is that we came from a world of souls. We're going to return to a world of souls. And we have a finite amount of time here to uplift our soul. So, all these 5 levels of pleasure, even the physical pleasures, are designed to not only uplift our bodies, but also our souls. So, when you are eating something, when you feel like overeating, ask yourself, is it my body that's hungry or my soul? And you're going to know the difference. You know when your body's hungry,
Mhm.
and you know when it's something else that's causing you to overeat.
Yeah.
So when you recognize that, that's a time to do something else that's joyful. Maybe even have a list of other joyful things you like to do on your fridge or on your cupboard.
Yes,
And
I love having stuff visible so you can see it. Yes.
yeah. And so right away, you'll just start doing something else. It could be so little. It could be pressing a button, turning on music, standing up and stretching.
Yeah.
And suddenly you don't feel like finishing the bag of potato chips anymore. You open the window, you feel the breeze coming in, you feel the
I
sunshine.
just did that right before this interview here. I was like, I'm so tired, and I probably am gonna go take a nap after. But I was like, I'm drained. I'm just right. And so I go, you know what? It's nice out. I went outside 10 minutes. I just sat in a chair on my deck and I just sat there, closed my eyes, enjoyed the sun. And I feel
Beautiful.
so much better.
Absolutely. It filled you with the gratitude. It filled up your soul. That's what we need to do. We have to remember that we're spiritual beings here in the clothing of our bodies, and we're here to nourish our souls. So
Mm,
that's it. The more we can focus on that, and the more healthy food we eat, it takes up the space for all the processed stuff. So
yeah.
it's just a really good way to go. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. And where can people find your books?
Everything is on Amazon. I mean, all my books, and they're also in, if people don't have the money to spend, they're in libraries, they're in bookstores, wherever you want to find them, you could find them.
Wonderful. And where can people find you? Are you on social media?
Yeah, Facebook, LinkedIn,
And what are
Twitter.
they going to search?
Oh, just for my name, and it's all on my Amazon author page. All my books are in one spot there.
Excellent.
There are many different publishers, but they're all in one place for all my
Yes.
books. Yeah.
And I will be putting all those links down below in the description. So be sure to check them out. Follow Bracha. Make sure you show her some love. And thank you so very, very much for being on the show.
Thank you for this wonderful podcast and for what you're doing. Thank you so much.
I hope everybody really enjoyed the show. Like I said, some really crazy life-changing things. I'm going to just go on vacation for a little bit. 10 years later. Like, I don't know if I could do that, but I am so glad that it worked out well for her and that she found what she was looking for, that joyfulness. Remember that the links to follow her are in the description as well. Give the channel a like and follow, subscribe, show us some love here at the Ride or Die Show. And remember that the only way to end the stigma of mental health is to speak openly and honestly.